This is Democracy 2018, and now joining us is Gunny Harmon, the Republican who is challenging the Democrat in the 7th District here in Indianapolis. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
It's good to be here.
So viewers have a lot of questions for those of you who are running for office this year. So many issues to talk about. One of the questions that came in, and help me with this one, is the issue of health care affordability and availability. As you know, the healthcare system has either been called Obamacare or now Trump Care, or its official name is the Affordable Care Act. No matter what it is, I think there's a sense that people feel confused by the current system. Your thoughts on healthcare for this viewer who wants to know, how do I get it? Is it available? And what's it going to look like in 2019?
Well, healthcare should start out as similar to your car insurance. You should be able to go across state lines and go throughout the United States in order to get what's best program for you and your coworkers. And also, I think one thing that we need to look at is health savings accounts. You put in what you want and you go through it, and when you're young, if you want it, because when you're young you don't really need health insurance because you're healthy, but you need to build that bank up in case something does happen. And as far as the health savings account, I know there was a bill that came out that my opponent opposed to, was the Health Bill 6199, and it denied people who had health savings accounts. If you're diabetic, you couldn't buy needles with that account, and if you're a female, you couldn't buy female products. So the bill finally passed through the House, but we need to make sure that if you use your health savings account, you should be able to use it for health reasons. And the other thing is you need to have access and quality. Just because you have access to health care doesn't mean you have quality health care. And so I think that's the important part too, is make sure we shop around and make sure we can expand throughout the United States.
What do we do with the existing program, which has morphed in from Obamacare to Trump Care? Does that need to be fully dissolved? And I ask that question only because, as you know, across the country, millions of people are part of an exchange or some sort of program, and that program has been tinkered with, and so that's what the anxiety is being caused by. So what do we do with all those people who are in that current program? Does that have to go away, or do you reform it?
Well, we reform it, yes. We need to tweak it back to where it was before, because it was more affordable before the ACA. And the only thing that was restricting it was you couldn't go outside the state lines to get a health program. The employers couldn't go across state lines. And so I think we need to go back to looking at that portion of it.
Okay. The other issue that a viewer has for us is the issue of civility in politics. The conversation in Congress and really across the country has become really coarse. So how do we get back to that when, as you know, many of the districts across the country are gerrymandered? Congressmen or congresswomen can say whatever the heck they want, because if they are in the right district, unless they're primaried out, you get to win.
Yeah.
So what do? How do you have a conversation with someone who has opposite views of what you believe in?
One, you have to look at your person, and that person that you vote for has to have honor and integrity in what they're doing for the U.S. government. That, when you get stuck into a district, a safe district, where it doesn't matter, all you do is put your name on a ballot and you're there. And that's throughout the whole United States. And the main thing is we do have to look at the people and make sure they have honor and integrity when they're serving the people. And the other thing would be you have to make sure that they are believing in what you believe in. And so that's the start of the civility in the United States.
And have you seen, I guess I should have asked the question, do you believe that the conversation has not been civil? Have you noticed a rapid downward spiral in how people converse on the political playing field?
Yes, when they're in a safe area, or if they're in the Senate where they're there for 6 years and they don't have to worry about it till the 5th year they have to get reelected. I forgot my train of thought right there.
But you've seen that sort of acrimonious, just that ugly side where people are just saying the most vile things about each other because they can, or because that's where Is that the right way? I mean,
I think of what it is, when you look at the Senate and the Congress, a lot of people do not have military service. And when you do have a little bit of military service, they learn to know when to speak and how to speak and to have respect for each other. Because one thing we learned about the military is that respect is not given, it's earned. And a lot of times when people go to Washington, they think they're entitled to the respect, and they don't give it or receive it in the right way.
Right, and respect doesn't come with a party. You could be whatever party, right?
That's right.
It's about the person. There's all this talk about the possibility of a blue wave, where Democrats would seize control of one of the chambers in Congress, or now we're hearing there could be a red wave, where the Republicans would maintain both majorities in the House and the Senate. Either way, however you take a look at this, if there is a blue wave, there's already talk about impeaching the president. Is it too soon to do that? Is that disrespectful? Is that out of line? What do you make of the talk that if there is a blue wave, that the president in some way should face impeachment?
Well, it goes back to respect and integrity. If that's the case, if there's a blue wave, you would hope that they would look at the Constitution and follow the constitutional laws. And one of the things that you would have to do is ensure the president is entitled in constitutional rights too, the 14th Amendment, due process. And so you would have to make sure that there is actually a charge or a crime, misdemeanor, felonies and high misdemeanors, or high felonies.
Sure. But do you think, let me ask you this, do you think it's outrageous to even be talking about something? First, people have not been elected yet. There hasn't been an election. To even be discussing attacking the president without being in office yet. I mean, is there a disconnect there? I don't know.
It's sort of a disconnect. First, like I said, you have to have the House seated. And then depending on what the majority is, then you have to review to see if there's a crime. And if there's not a crime, you treat it like a grand jury. You review it. And if there is a crime, then all you need is a simple majority, and then you transfer it over to the Senate, which is the trial. And then it'd be up to the Senate to have 2/3 of the Senate to convict the crime.
The economy is a big issue.
Yes.
And we have seen that this administration has really gone after certain countries on the issues of tariffs, China in particular. Some people call tariffs a silent tax. Others say, look, it's not a silent tax. It's about making America great again because we are putting America's interests first. How do you see that? Because as you know, tariffs can impact farmers. They can impact people who sell pharmaceuticals like Eli Lilly, Carrier that sells air conditioning units and furnaces. So we have a number of industries in our own state that could pay the price for tariffs. So do you see it as a silent tax? Do you see it, or do you see it as an effort to make America great again by ensuring that American products stand tall against the rest?
Combination of both. One thing I would say about tariffs is that we need to bring jobs back to the United States. What we need to do right now, we are running more of a consumer nation. We need to bring back the jobs back to the United States and make it more 50-50, where we're producing and consuming our own products. And then the tariffs will take care of itself in that aspect.
On the issue of immigration, we often heard on the campaign trail, build the wall, Mexico will pay for it. I don't think Mexico is going to pay for it unless something changes. I mean, that's a factual. I'm not trying to make a funny here, but do you believe that there is a need for a wall? Is it a national security issue? Is it an issue of keeping certain people out? How do you see this debate? Because I think most Americans want to be safe. Nobody wants another 9/11. No one wants a terrorist attack in Texas or Arizona or New Mexico. How do you see this wall debate as it unfolds?
Well, one, I see it as a national security, yes. As far as using the word wall, I mean, we're not going to put a wall. I don't see us putting a wall that's 1,500 miles long. But as a retired gunnery sergeant, I look at that area as using barriers, maybe using the natural terrain to slow down and do the process. But you got to remember, the 1800s, 1900s, when the Irish, the Italians, and the Polish came, they were recorded as well. when they came to the United States. So I do believe we need to record people when they are coming into the United States.
And when you say record, for clarity's sake, you're talking about through the immigration process.
Exactly.
There has to be a process by where we know who's entering the country.
And what families are there too. And the other thing about immigration with the families is DACA. When a family comes over and you have a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 5-year-old, they don't have the criminal intent to come into the United States, so they don't know that this is happening. So once they hit 18, we need to process them as United States citizens. Now, if you have someone that's a teenager coming in by themselves, yeah, they have the criminal intent, and then we should process them back to their original country.
A major issue, of course, for folks that are heading to the polls in November, as we also know, open vote, we're already in the middle of voting in Indiana, is the issue, will my vote count? We've heard so much about this Russian interference and the Russian social media efforts. Are you confident that the state of Indiana, that the United States' election infrastructure is secure enough that when you and I go to vote, and when that person goes out to vote, that their vote will count?
Yeah, I believe we are very secure. One thing I want to make sure is that everybody has a chance to vote, and that includes the homeless people. We need to make sure that they have identification in their voting cards and make sure their voices are heard too. Because a lot of the homeless people are also vets, military veterans, and we need to make sure that their votes, because they've served in the military, they fell on their luck, and now they're homeless, and now they can't vote. So we need to make sure that they're able to vote and their voices are heard.
You are going up against an incumbent in this election. So why you? Why you over the incumbent?
Well, one, I am born and raised here in Indianapolis. I born on the east side, Community East Hospital. I spend my time over at Brookside and Brightwood area. I attended Howe High School for all 4 years. Met a lot of great people, and during my senior year, I was nominated to the Naval Academy by Andrew Jacobs. I did not get appointed, but then I went into the Marine Corps, served my years in the Marine Corps. They paid for my college, and I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and I have a degree in criminal justice and East Asian studies, which gives me the background to help out in the criminal justice system here as I'm working as an Indiana State parole officer. And I care about this city. My parents were here. My dad went to Tech High School, dropped out, joined the Marine Corps. My mother went to Shortridge High School, and born and raised here, and I love this city.
Well, Mr. Harmon, we definitely appreciate your service to country, and as a graduate of Howe High School, makes you a Continental, is that correct?
A Hornet.
A Hornet. Who are the It's Washington.
Washington High School.
I got all my things confused. What I'm not confused about is the gentleman that I'm sitting with. This is Wayne Gunny Harmon. He is the Republican candidate running the 7th District, a proud Hornet, and of course, are you voting in November?
Yes, I am.
Right.
Actually, I'll probably vote early.
All right, very good. Best of luck to you, sir. And that concludes our Democracy 2018.